Welcome to the Dealing with Goliath podcast. The mission of Dealing with Goliath is to sharpen the psychological edge in negotiation and high-impact conversations for business leaders with skin in the game who want to be more effective under pressure, uncover hidden value, and increase profitability. With expert guests across the business spectrum, we deliver gems of wisdom delving into their methods, their thinking and approach to business, life, and problem solving. This is the double espresso shot of insight through our short interview format with 5 questions in about 15 minutes. I'm your host, Al McBride, and my guest today is Joseph D'Souza. Joseph is focused on teasing out the real human beings in the executives, leaders, and business owners he coaches. He is the creator of the ROQUE Model, conversation starter, and founder of QuestUnique professional coaching. He says that we make better decisions when we are anchored in who we are as human beings, are conscious and willful in our world of relationships, and leverage our work to support the fulfillment of life with purpose and meaning. His TED Talks share the story of ROQUE. So Joseph, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Thank you, Alistair. So good to be on here, and a very good morning from a sunny summer's morning in the Yarra Valley in Australia, which is about 100 kilometers east of Melbourne.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I was down that part of the world a few years ago, and it's fabulous stuff. Quite jealous. We're just coming out of winter here still, having all these cold snaps. So I am envious. But it's great to have you on the show, Joseph.
Thank you.
Great to have you. So let's dive straight in. So who is your ideal client, and what's the biggest challenge that they face?
Yeah, what a great question. I mean, my ideal target clients are people in leadership positions, whether they be small business or corporations, whatever it takes, where they have to influence other people. And of course, in today's corporate world, you're leading yourself as well. You're a lone professional. And most of the time, these people are juggling success and stress and seeking that work-life balance. They want to have financial freedom. They want to have the freedom to choose. And all of that is going on at the same time whilst they're trying to do their job. And I never forget also the other ideal client, and that's the stay-at-home partner or parent. Okay. They are doing such an incredible amount of work for humanity, bringing up families, looking after and supporting the people that do go out to work. And they are also wondering, how am I going to be acknowledged? Who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going?
Right. Yeah. And it sounds like, as you said, there's a lot of stress there. There's a lot of frustration. So what are some of those common mistakes people make when they're trying to solve that problem that don't quite work?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistake, and I call it a mistake, is having that fear of being judged.
Okay.
All right. And if we forgot that fear, we'd be trying a lot more. We'd be sort of releasing some of our potential to explore more, to give more of our best. But even at the top of the ladder in leadership positions, we're afraid of how we will be judged on results as perceived by others. I see that as a fundamental mistake.
Well, I agree. I agree, but we're kind of on the same page on that one, aren't we? But
yeah.
So if people are, as you said, they're afraid to be judged, is it just that they feel they should have this solved already, or is it a judge, as you said, that they'll let other people down and that whatever they've built, as you said, often they're quite successful people, so whatever they've built might fall apart? Or what exactly is the fear as part of that judgment?
That's very perceptive. If you think about building a house, if you don't have a solid foundation, don't worry about putting the walls, let alone the roof, because that'll all collapse. And what do I mean by foundation? When we are not anchored in ourselves about who we are, about our values, our sense of meaning, our sense of purpose, then we are at the mercy of the demands put on us. And sometimes we invoke the demands because of our perception of how we see our world.
Right, right. So as I said, it all comes back to the framing in our head, the meaning we give to things, however helpful or unhelpful. Right, right.
Yeah.
So
And another
yeah, go ahead.
another mistake that is often made is we allow ourselves to be restrained by our own paradigms. Now
Okay,
that's a
talk to
very
us more about
confronting.
this. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
to unpack
yeah.
there.
You know, it's very confronting to even hear that. You know, what, me? You know, what am I restraining myself? No, I want to do more. But how do we know that? Because we can only think from the framework of our experience, which is the past, and perhaps some lessons learned. You know, a reward and theory or reward and punishment kind of experience. And so I've done that before, it worked, let me do more of it. I've done that before, it didn't work, so I won't do more of it.
Right,
Instead of approaching each circumstance or situation on merit.
right.
So we are restraining ourselves from the limitations of our own paradigms. That's a mistake.
That's fascinating, and it's all obviously a mistake because it's what they call, isn't it, the resulting fallacy, where because you try something and it didn't work, it may be unpleasant,
Yep.
but n equals 1, even if it's n equals 2 or 3, that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It means it didn't work with that person or whatever, that example, that one situation.
You got it. And then imagine putting ourselves under pressure from peers. And sometimes the peers put the pressure, but sometimes we assume the peers are putting pressure on us,
Correct.
and then we act accordingly.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's
it's
right.
very tricky. It's very tricky. And this whole concept of competition, I must win, I must be better than the others, you're setting yourself up with obstacles, and maybe you'll develop some great talents of being an obstacle jumper. But at the end of the day, these obstacles take away energy, and they take away our ability to actually see far ahead. And if we are stifling ourselves, how, as leaders, are we going to inspire those that we're leading?
Absolutely.
Right? So we then pass on the the legacy, if you will, of our own restrictions.
It's fascinating because, as you say, if as you said, a lot of your clients are probably in those leadership positions, and it's all about the atmosphere they create, isn't it?
Yep.
So as I say, so how do I motivate my workforce? You know, how often have we heard this? And you think motivate, it's like, oh, a carrot, stick, external prodding, you know. Whereas the question is, how do I inspire my team? How do I
Absolutely.
get at what they need and stoke the fire in the belly so that I don't
Yeah.
need to motivate them, you know?
You see,
Absolutely.
as leaders, we are mistaken in thinking we have to do something to the team, or we have to do something to the followers, right?
Very true.
And it is actually quite a truism that says the role of the leader is to inspire others to give up their best. I take it a step further. The role of a smart leader is to ignite in others their own well of inspiration to come forward. Imagine the potential that releases. I've been in teams where people feel, oh gosh, he trusts me to make my own decisions, and look what more I can get. And that's what the leader's job is, not to manage the team, not to tell them what to do, but to inspire them, to grow them, to ignite in them their own spark of enthusiasm, of energy, to actually provide their best.
Absolutely. I mean, you're reminding me of, you know, the key parts of the high performing team, By
Yes.
definition, they have to be more than the sum of their parts. And a team
Yes.
that gets along quite well aren't necessarily more than the sum of their parts. They're just the sum of their parts.
Yes.
Whereas when there's conflict and people are holding things back because, as you said, they're insecure, they're afraid of being judged. We're taking that from the singular leader to that spreading through the team. Then no wonder, they're not even the sum of their parts because they're holding things back. There's, as you
Yeah.
said, these fear responses. So with that in mind and with that idea of the leader and then springing out and rolling out to their team, what might be one valuable free action that the audience could implement that would help with that issue? So it wouldn't maybe solve it, but it would certainly put them in the right trajectory.
Right. Remember what I said earlier on about when you build a house, your foundation has got to be solid.
Sure.
Let that cement set if you're using cement. Make sure you've got the right ingredients to mix it all together and there's the right temperature, all of that, okay? So think about that. In your regular life, you're driving to and from work, to and from the supermarket or whatever, and you have a certain car. If you want to go on an adventure, off-road, as they say, up the mountains, follow some really adventurous tracks, you actually need to change the car, because if you don't, you'll get stuck.
Right.
So
your Honda Civic won't do the 4x4 off-road bit. Okay.
Well, unless it's a souped-up Honda Civic that has got four-wheel drive and a lot of traction and a lot of height. As an analogy, in order to really find our bearings, if we leave the workplace and say take a partner or take a friend and go for a walk in territory that isn't your everyday territory, go for a walk in the mountains, go for a walk in the forest, go by the river, right? Yeah. And here's the challenge, here's the important exercise. Don't say a word to the person you're walking with. Just go along and experience and be in the moment of what is surrounding you. If there are animals or birds, listen out for them. Don't try and name them. Don't try and name the tree. Don't look at your partner and say, did you see that? Or what is that called? Stop that chatter of the mind and just be, right? Just be present. And you will find that the journey you have taken from your office or home by car to the forest, that's already you to drop some baggage behind. Right. Then you get out of the car and start walking, and now you're dropping even more baggage behind. And all the time, what you're doing is going back to just being who you are as a human being, going back to that foundation of who you are, right? And as I said, without conversation, because conversation implies thinking. Thinking implies thoughts. Thoughts implies carrying that baggage, right? Okay. And to still the mind is very difficult, very challenging. But unless you try it, unless you do it and get comfortable, you won't know what it's like. So unless you are testing for that cement that's drying, that essence of who you are as a human being, you're not going to build a good foundation. Now, that's one part of the exercise, and you might have to do it repeatedly to get comfortable, because initially it's strange, right?
It sounds like walking or moving meditation.
Yes, I hesitate to call it meditation, sure, because meditation means so many different things to various people.
Very true.
And if I say you're doing a walking meditation, people are going to say, well, how am I going to sit cross-legged and walk? Well, let's not go there. So when you get back to your home base, right, just notice how you feel as a result of not having had all that activity in the mind, all that noise, right? Notice how you feel, notice how your partner or colleague felt, and just absorb that emotion, that feeling, that sensation of just being. And let me tell you, when you go back into the office and you're faced with the same challenges, try and get that same sensation of being. But okay, you can say, but now I'm in a noisy office and people are shouting and people are saying there's project deadlines and all of that. And I'm saying use that very environment and transmute it to take you to that sense of being, that sense of place of who you are, right? You don't have to bring the forest in your mind. That's bringing baggage back to this, right? Use the environment in which you find yourself to derive that sense of peace, that sense of purpose. You will find that as a leader, your communications improve. You are able to connect with other human beings. You're a bit more tolerant. You're less fazed with panic and demands, and more confident about your next steps. It's a very powerful step, and in a leadership world where there are lots of challenges, people are going to say, how am I going to even have time to do that? But until you've tried, you won't know.
What else do your clients report about that? Because it must be a huge, first of all, okay, it may take, as you said, several times to get used to it and to properly quiet the inner voice chattering away, often saying unhelpful things, sometimes just talking nonsense. And that's kind of what you're doing. You're quieting that, being, as you said, more present to what's happening around you, the environment around you. When you bring that into the office, what do people report? Because you said that they're communicating better. Is that, are they being more intuitive? Are they actually just get their own noise is actually out of the way and they're able to see what's going on with greater clarity? What is it that's happening?
Great question. Their own sense of awareness has expanded, and they're aware now of what is noise and what is meaningful. So when someone comes and panics, we're going to miss this deadline, or our sales targets are not going to be met for this month and all of that, you hear that as noise and your mind begins to focus, okay, what do we need to do about it? Right. Rather than reacting to the panic, you are now proactively looking for ways with your gathering to how you're going to achieve that. So you're still performing, right, but now you're performing in a different way. If you were my leader and you came to me all stressed out about something I needed to do quickly, I'll be picking up your stress. And that immediately puts me on the wrong foot to try and do what I'm trying to do.
Whereas the emotional contagion can work in a very positive way. That if you're much calmer, then the person who's in the panic will automatically calm that bit more down to your level. Okay, very.
Absolutely.
That is fascinating stuff. So what is one valuable free resource that you can direct people to that will help them with this?
Okay. For your listeners on this podcast, I have changed the entry point into my website, and when they go in and register, they have access to every single free resource that's available to someone who's registered. But I would direct them to one little exercise in particular. It's called the ROQUE Starter, ROQUE, ROQUE Starter.
Right.
And the ROQUE Starter is a simple exercise, and it looks at 3 key areas of your life. Who you are as a human being. We've talked about that a bit.
Right.
Your relationships, your special relationships, and then your career, your profession, your role, or whatever. And in these 3 areas, it asks, what do you need right now? Right now, what do you perceive as a need in each of those areas?
Okay.
And then on the next column is, if those needs were satisfied, what would be different? How would you feel?
Okay.
And then there's a little exercise that helps you prioritize and encourages you to set some goals to try and achieve what you need, because you know that when you get those goals achieved, how you will feel and what will be different.
Sounds fantastic. That's fantastic. So that link will obviously be below the podcast and on the blog. That's a fantastic resource. Thank you for that, Joseph. That's super.
My pleasure.
So tell me, what's one question I should have asked you that would be of great value to the audience? I know there's so many. That's a tricky one, an abundance there, but
good one. Your podcast is all about dealing with Goliath. I suppose you could ask me, have I met Goliath?
All right. Have you met? Who is your Goliath and how did you fare?
Yeah. One day I was looking into the mirror and looking at myself, and all of a sudden I saw the image of Goliath. And almost instinctively, David also appeared. And when I saw David and Goliath, I then noticed an army of saboteurs. And then suddenly I noticed a whole congregation of mystics and sages. And in that moment, I realized I was all of that. I'm actually projecting through those images, depending on what state of mind I am, right? And it occurred to me that if I was facing a certain situation and I was viewing it as Goliath, I would act as Goliath would, and I would get results based on those actions.
Right.
If I was acting or looking at the circumstances through David's eyes, I would take actions that David would take and get results based on David's action. The moral there really is we are both Goliath and David. We are our saboteurs and our sages and our mystics.
Right.
It's who are we going to choose to view the world with or through. So that tells me that how I look at the world and my circumstances dictate what kinds of actions I'm going to take. And those actions I take will deliver the results. Now, if I like the results, I can keep on viewing the world through that filter. If I don't like the results, just changing the actions won't, because my mind is still trapped in a different paradigm. Yeah. So if we accept that we are Goliath ourselves, and we are projecting Goliath's perspective, then we have an aha moment. I've also got David if I've got the Goliath. I've also got a sage if I've got the mystic. Who am I going to choose?
Exactly. Who's right for what you want next? Yeah. But again, it's that as you said, the power, the awareness to recognize that and then make a choice.
Absolutely.
Which is the key behind all of these things that we do. Absolutely.
And we have to take that adventure and go off-road, as I said, into a different environment in order to really find our center.
We do. Absolutely. And you need, as you said, you need the right vehicle for the job.
Yeah.
Very important. Well, It was great to have you on the show, Joseph. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I mean,
fabulous stuff.
I really enjoy talking to you, and one day we'll meet in person. You can offer me a glass of Guinness and I'll offer you a glass of Australian fine wine.
It's a deal. Sooner or later. All right. Talk to you again soon, Joseph. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Cheers
Bye.
now. Bye-bye.
Bye.